class, and welcome to week 2 project. I hope that you enjoyed doing the warm-up with the value lesson, and now we're going to begin our value optical illusion, creating these hall tunnel looking things that you can walk into, or it looks like you can walk into. So we'll get started with our first part of the video, which is drawing the square and putting in our guidelines. So to get started, we are going to put an 8 by 8 inch square in the center of our paper. And if you remember from last time, we started at the top of our paper with our ruler. We lined our 0 up with the edge, and my paper is 12 inches. So if you want an 8-inch square in the center, then you have to subtract 8 from 12. So 8 from 12 leaves 4. And if we want even amounts on both sides of our square, we need to divide 4 by 2. So that gives us 2 inches on both sides of our paper. So I'm going to come in from my 12, 2 inches. So that's at the 10. Put a little mark at my the 10 on my ruler, come in from this side 2 inches, put a little mark at the 2. So now I have 2 inches on this side and 2 inches on this side and 8 inches in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and show you. So I'm going to line my 0 up right there. And yep, that mark is at my 8. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I'm going to come to the bottom, put my 0 on the edge of my paper. And I'm going to come over to, make a mark, come over to, make a mark at the 10, and again that will be 8 inches. Now I'm going to draw a light guideline to connect these two marks. Now we have the sides of our square centered from left to right. Now I'm going to measure down from the top. My paper is 9 inches. So if you take 8 from 9, that leaves 1. So I'm going to need ½ an inch on both sides. So I'm going to come in to where the 8½ is and make a mark. And then I'm going to come down where the ½ inch is. And that's giving me a full inch and 8 inches on the inside. So my 0 is there. My 8 is lined up with that mark. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Putting my ruler, the 0 on the edge of my paper. Coming in ½ an inch. Coming down ½ an inch. And I have 8 inches in the middle. So now I'm going to connect those two marks. Now make sure you're getting the correct marks, because if you notice right here, I have 2 marks. That one's from when I measured this direction. This is from where I just measured. So make sure you're getting the right mark so that you're drawing your line in the right place. And if you don't, that's why they're light, because then we can erase. And my line is a little crooked, so I am going to erase that line, because we want to try to make sure they're as straight as possible. And I'm going to line my ruler back up to make sure that it is straight this time. Okay, that's better. Making mistakes is okay. And now see, I need to come down to this one. I almost did it on the wrong spot. That's why we use light pencil lines when we're drawing it out instead of our Sharpie first. So if you want to measure to make sure that you've gotten the line in the right place, go ahead and measure. That's ½ an inch. Now we have a perfectly squared square in the center of our paper. Now that we have our 8-inch square drawn in the center of our paper, we are going to start drawing the 2-inch squares on the inside. So on the inside of this, we're going to have 9 2 by 2 inch square blocks. If you have, we're going to have 3 across the top, 3 in the middle, and 3 on bottom. So if we have 3 2-inch blocks across the top, that equals 6 inches. Well, we're going to put a 1/2 inch block or space in between our blocks and then on the end. So we're going to have a 1/2 inch border around all of our blocks on the inside. So I know you didn't know, you weren't expecting so much math, were you? I know. Lots of math in optical illusions because everything has to be so precise. So to start to make our boxes, we are going to first do a 1/2 inch, a square inside this that's a 1/2 inch from the edge. So we're going to make a 7.5 inch square inside this one. So I'm just going to come over, I'm going to line my ruler up to the edge of my line right there. So the 0 is on the edge of my square. I'm going to come in 1/2 inch. And I'm going to come in 1/2 inch on this side. And then I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom, just like we did to make this outside square. I'm going to draw my light guidelines to connect them. So here's my 1/2 inch here, here's my 1/2 inch here. I'm just going to do a light guideline. Do the same thing over here. Just going to draw my light guideline. Now I am going to, on this line, come down. So I'm going to put my ruler up here. I'm going to measure down 1/2 inch. Put my line, measure up 1/2 inch. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Measure down 1/2 inch, measure up 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to have to make sure I'm putting, because see I have 2 marks on the top of my paper. I have to make sure that I'm coming down to the 1/2 inch one. So this is my 1/2 inch one, the bottom one. So I'm going to line my 2 marks up, and I'm just going to draw from this line to that line and do my other line. And then if I erase that top little part and this top little part, then I have my 1/2 inch border. And then I'm going to connect these two, make sure I'm connecting the 1/2 inch ones and not the other little marks that I made. And then I'm going to erase this bottom corner. Okay, so now I have another box, another square inside my 8 inch square. Now I'm going to measure over from here, because now we're going to start doing our 2 inch blocks. So we're going to have 3 2 inch blocks across the top of our paper, and in the middle and at the bottom of our square. So I'm going to mark my 2 inch boxes here, and I'm going to put 1/2 inch in between each of my 2 inch blocks. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the top line of that inside square. And I'm going to come over 2 inches. I'm going to skip 1/2 inch and mark my little tally. Come over 2 inches, so that's 2. My next mark will be at 2.5. Then my next mark is going to be at 3.5, 4.5, because that's 2 inches. Then I'm going to have a mark at 5, and then that'll be 7. So 5 to 6 is 1, 6 to 7 is 2. So there are my marks for my boxes. So here's my 2 inch square, 1/2 inch gap, 2 inch, 1/2 inch, 2 inch. I'm going to come to the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to make a mark on that bottom line at my 2 inches. Make sure your ruler is lined up with the corner. 2 inches at 2.5 inches. Then it's going to come over to 4.5, and then 5. Now I'm going to connect those lines as well. So I'm going to connect that line, that little tally that I just put, to that upper one. And this is going to be a light guideline. It doesn't have to be dark, just so that you see it and know it's there. I'm going to move over to those next ones at the 1/2 inch. And I'm going to draw another guideline. Then I'm going to move over and do my guideline for the next one. And then for that last box, that last section. So now the inside square is divided into 3 sections. 2 inches, 1/2 inch, 2 inch, 1/2 inch, 2 inches. From here, I'm going to divide my inside box into 3 equal squares. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3. You can do the same thing the other way. So I'm going to turn my paper over. And just like I did on the other edge, I'm going to put my 0 at that corner right there. And I'm going to come over to my 2, my 2 1/2, then to my 4 1/2, then to 5. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. It's going to go to 2, 2 1/2, 4 1/2, and 5. Lots and lots of measuring. Now I'm going to connect those lines the same way I did the other direction. And these are light lines. Mine are probably a little darker than they should be because I want you to be able to see it in the video. Now we have 9 2-inch square blocks inside of our 8-inch square. So this is the first little part. Now we have to divide for the diagonal part. So now we have our squares, and now we have to divide our paper into these diagonals. So what we're going to do, we're going to line our pencil up at this top corner, put our ruler along that pencil, and we're going to connect to our bottom corner. So we're going to go to this corner, and we're going to put just a line, oops, I moved my ruler. Line that back up. There we go. I'm just putting this line, this diagonal line, in the boxes. I'm not crossing in that opening, just in those boxes. So there, now I have my line, my diagonal line in my squares, not inside here, just in the boxes. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. So put my ruler, my pencil at my bottom corner, line my ruler up against it, meet my ruler in my top corner there, and draw a diagonal line through my squares. Okay. And those are a little off, so I'm going to erase, and that's okay if they're a little off, because sometimes the thickness of our pencil lead pushes our ruler a little bit off. So I'm going to fix those. This one's actually okay. My ruler moved when I went to do this one. So I'm going to just do this one individually from this corner to that corner and this corner to this corner. Yeah, okay, that looks a little better. And if you have to erase, that's why we're doing light lines, so that if you need to erase, they become invisible again. Okay, and it's easier to move when you draw lightly. And again, I am drawing very dark so that you can see. Now, I don't know if you can notice, because I actually just noticed this, but if you look right here in my little squares, I did not draw a line here. But when I'm looking at my video, as I'm doing this, my eyes are tricking me to think that there's actually a line through those little squares. That's actually kind of cool. It's a really neat optical illusion that we've already created and we didn't mean to. Now we're going to do our dividing lines in here. So these lines are going to connect from this corner of the second square to the inside of this. But we're not going to go all the way to that line. We're just putting it in that square. So we're going to put our pencil on the top of our corner of our second square, not that corner. See, we still have our 1/2 inch gap. It's on the second square. Line our ruler up, put our ruler into the center of this middle square, and we're going to draw our line ending at the bottom of that top square. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So our pencil goes to the top corner of our second square. We're lining our ruler up to the inside, to that center point, the very center point, and we're drawing our line down. So now this square has, and that one is a little off, so I'm going to erase this one, and I'm going to do that again because it's a little bit off, and it's completely okay to do that. The illusion works better when it's lined up perfectly, so if you need to do that, then go ahead and move your lines and erase and redo. That's a little bit better. Okay. So now I have my second box lines. I'm going to rotate to this one, and I'm going to do this one. I'm going to start from my center point. So I'm going to put my pencil on my center point, connect up to that top square of my the top corner of my second square, and just draw my line from there to there. I'll do the same thing. I'm starting at the center this time. It actually makes my line straighter and in the right position. Make my line up there. And again, my lines are very dark. Do not go this dark with your lines in case you need to erase. Plus, they will be sort of erased at the end. Some of them will be. So now we're doing this square. So starting at my center point, connecting to that top corner of my second square. Okay. Make our second line in that one. Okay. Now we have our last one to finish. Starting in my center point, connecting to that top corner of that second square. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Okay. Now you should have an 8 by 8 inch square that looks like this. You have now completed the first part of this project. So the next video will be about shading. So get to this point. It may take you a little bit. You may have to erase. You may have to start over. That's okay. Once you get here and you're happy with the straightness of your lines and the angle of your lines, then you can move on to the shading part.